Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey there, hi there, ho there. This is RHJunior, RHJunior. Reality check coming to you live over the system of tubes, imitating a boob tube, known as YouTube, calling you out to come and watch another episode of my one and only typical, stereotypical show, Spleen Squeezins. 1, 2, 3, 4. Swedish chef. Okay. Why do I do that? Because I can. Because I can. Okay. Hey, how y'all doing? Okay, we're starting another show. Yes, we're going to do some freaking drawing this time. We're going to do some artwork. We're going to do some art. Well, actually, we're going to do some comic strips, try and, get some comics up on the page for people to read. I haven't done much. I've been poking away at these chapters in my comics, in my fan fictions, rather. But I haven't been able to really force myself to do more than a couple of sentences at a time. So I'm, not exactly highly productive. All right, let's see here. Now let's see. How y'all doing? Let's see here. Checking. Okay. I wanted to talk about a few things, a few random nonsense concepts that have been going through my head. The idea of inventions going one step too far. What I mean by that is, the idea of, the idea is that there is a point of diminishing returns on inventing things, and that, after a certain point, the quote-unquote improvements are actually a step back. Now, I'll be hitting on that, be hitting on a couple of random topics, see what stupidity Facebook. We'll talk about those classic stupid little bimbos. I'm going to call them that. Stupid little bimbos. Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian, the masterminds, for lack of a better term, behind the farce that was known as Gamergate. And they are an ongoing goad and thorn in the side of Western civilization. Basically, they're feminist crybabies. The typical cry bullies. Throwing tantrums, getting rich off of white male guilt. That's all they're doing. And basically pandering to the absolute worst in our society and in our world and in the powers that be by giving them what they want, an excuse to censor the internet. Now, moving along, other topics. Good Lord Almighty. Okay, I heard about this fairly recently. They had some sort of... I don't really follow this sort of thing, okay? I'm not really a gamer. I play World of Warcraft. I love playing World of Warcraft. I like hanging around with my... I'm really growing to be very fond of my guild. They're called Mature Gamers. And I am given the general impression that they're all middle or older age like myself. Or at least a large number of them are. Considering one of them is known, I believe one of the is known as Granny, it's great fun having, and they're really helpful to me, and they help me out, And even though I've been playing a long time, and they don't treat me like a noob, is what I'm saying. They treat me like a new member. There is a big difference in between those two in the gaming community. Let's talk about that too. The way the gaming community treats its newest members. That's another topic of discussion to consider. Now, and I lost my train of thought. Okay, they are talking about, they're talking about the trailers for the newest Marvel's Endgame. They're talking about the next movie, Marvel movie that comes out. It doesn't say when. I haven't watched the trailer yet. I'm right now looking at a bit of it in there, and yeah, this I can say this: they have not yet. They are yet to disappoint. They are yet to disappoint. So what can you say? Now, here's an idea for you. Here's an idea for you. One of the most common annoyances around this time of the year is Christmas lights. Christmas lights on strings. Who said they had to be on strings? Now, I know that there are ways, battery-powered ones, those would be a pain too, because the batteries would run out. Even little rechargeable ones would be kind of annoying. But there are ways to, there are ways to broadcast power. If there was a way to make wireless lights, that would be awesome. You wouldn't have to. You just hang them up like Christmas. Why not put light bulbs in the Christmas baubles and decorations? Put lights in them. Maybe even battery-powered ones, or ones that are solar, or have little solar cells in them, so that during the day they soak up the sunshine, the light and the ambient light, and at night they turn on. Instead of stringing lights around the tree, why not just make the decorations and the lights the same thing? Individual little lights that you hung all over it. This is just a thought. It's just a random thought. Now, if there was some way to keep those things lit without using batteries, that would be even better. Of course, that would probably require some kind of tree with a wireless recharger built into the trunk or something. And that sounds a little, dangerous. I don't know. But just a passing thought. There's got to be a better way to ultraviolet light. Use fluorescent Christmas lights. Not fluorescent Christmas lights, but instead of Christmas lights, use decorations that glow under ultraviolet light. Then use a black light in the tree to make the lights glow. Of course, you'd get a sort of you'd have to be. I'm sure there are ones that you can get that don't emit a purple light. Otherwise you end up with a purple glowy Christmas tree. But we live in an age where people buy pink Christmas trees. What do I care? Just a thought. Make fluorescent Christmas tree decorations. Put them in the tree. Put a black light in the tree or under the tree or on the tree, and ta-da! No fuss, no muss, no wires. Okay, I'm looking at this trailer right now for this new this new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Okay, it might actually be a good movie. It might actually be a good, interesting, fun movie to see. But, okay, first of all, the first thing I'm seeing is that the animation quality is terrible. It's very jerky. I think what they were trying to do is make it look like it's CGI, and they're trying to make it look like classic animation by making it stop motion-y. It's failing. Okay, that's not what makes a cartoon look like a cartoon. It's not the jerky motions. And second of all, it's very obvious that what they're trying to do is they are trying to market Miles Morales, the amazing, ethnically sensitive Spider-Man, as a replacement for Peter Parker. No, I'm sorry. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. One, Joe Quesada should be hung for treason. Two, Peter Parker graduated from college, married Mary Jane Parker, and they lived happily married for years. That's Peter Parker. That's the Amazing Spider-Man. And until you retcon it back to the original, to the original character, just get out of my face with your revisions. Now, okay, I'm sort of wondering what I'm going to do for Christmas. I literally have nothing. You know, it looks like I'm going to be sending everybody Christmas cards this year, which is shameful to me. It's a shame, but gift cards sound like a great gift. But doggone it, if you're going to send gift cards, you might as well send money. You might as well just send cash. Really. There's a reason for that. You see, the gift cards give the illusion that it sort of indicates oh, I thought a little bit about the stuff you like, what kind of stuff you like. Here's a card from the place you like, so that you can buy stuff there. But the problem is that basically they're the biggest ripoff you can imagine, is because so many people get these cards, and they can never quite spend those last couple of dollars. Now you sell 1 million gift cards, and assume that about 1% of them never get spent at all. A million cards, 1% of them never get spent at all. They sit in somebody's wallet until they expire. So that's about what, 10,000 or 100,000? That's let's say 1%. It's probably a lot higher than that. The percent that never actually gets spent at all. But 1% of 1 million. So about $10,000 free and clear, for nothing. Then you got, assume that of all the cards, every last card, after that, maybe they spend, maybe they spend a small percentage of it. There's always at least a couple of dollars left on the card, because you can never find anything that's exactly for the amount, right? You can't cash them, and so that's another $1 million easy or more free into the company's pockets. So they sell a bunch of these cards, and all it costs them is the plastic to print them on. And along they're a great profit margin. But, not such a hot gift. I don't know. Of course, we live in a culture where buying a gift is just giving somebody cash. That's something you do to kids in our society. We give them cash in Christmas cards and such. That's acceptable. And every now and then somebody will do that with an adult, but usually it's something you do for kids. When my oh man, sometimes I just don't know. Sometimes my grandmother, my mother's mother, well, she was very primitive. She was British as the day is long. She was married during World War II, brought to America, and to her dying days, she had a British accent you could chop with a hatchet. But anyway, she, every year they'd send me a little Christmas card with a couple of dollars in it. And one year she sent me a card. It was like, I was 18 or something at the time. And she enclosed a note that said, "We're not going to send you any more money now. You're old enough that we're not going to send you any more money." And that just, I'm like, love you too, Grandma. Just tactless. We're not sending you any money because you're not cute anymore. I know she didn't mean it that way, but man, just the tactlessness was breathtaking. They passed away, by the way. My grandparents have been passed away. All four of my grandparents have been gone for years now. I miss them. Okay, have you ever seen this? Okay, let me show you this. Let me show you this. Okay, what's the problem with this? Can you tell me what the problem is with this? When your husband does one thing around the house and expects to be praised. Okay, ladies, let's talk about that. Could we talk about that just for a second? Women have made a career of patting themselves on the back for doing whatever the hell they're supposed to do anyway. I do the hardest job in the world. I raise my own children. I clean and I slave and I clean my house. Yeah, and your husband, he goes out, works 8 hours, brings home the bacon. He's doing what he's doing. What does he get? A tie on Father's Day. That's, thanks, Dad. Here's your Old Spice. Another 364 days before we remember you again. But if a man helps, you can't have it both ways, all right, honey? You can't have it both ways. You can't complain that the man never helps around the house. And then when he helps around the house, when he does something, whether he does a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. This is not childish. This is not a man thing. This is a human thing. You do something that's outside of your normal schedule for somebody else. A thank you is nice. I'm sorry, men come home and their wives are saying, "Do you like her? Do you see anything different?" And you're supposed to guess whether it's their hair, their dress, their shoes, or whatever. You're supposed to congratulate them on, spending your money to look different. You don't like my new hairdo? What the heck? Don't talk about how men are like that. Come on. Don't even start. Women made it an art form. Yeah. Yep. That's the thing of it. But in our society, what I was saying about, gift cards force you to spend the money at a specific place. Gift cards force you to, they also make it very hard to spend exactly that amount. And when it comes down to it, cash is a better gift. But our culture frowns on that. And you're afraid that people will figure out, they'll count the dollars and, oh, well, now I know exactly how much you love me. What are you gonna do? You can't win. Really though, I'm not. I'm sort of having a. This is going to be sort of a Christmas card. Christmas for me. I'm gonna be sending out a lot of Christmas cards to everybody because I got nothing else. But all right. What was I thinking of? I've forgotten. I forgot my train of thought. Oh well. But if you want men around, okay, admit that at least, if you're talking about women, if you're going to go around talking about how you do everything around the house, will you at least admit the man does his share too? It's just that he doesn't do the same things you do. My poor day, the man the man helps around the house and he's he goes out of his way to help his wife, and suddenly how dare he want to be thanked? I love the man never does anything. The man is out there, he's fixing the plumbing, he's fixing the car, he's shingling the roof or whatever the hell. He's just doing stuff around the house. At which point the wife complains, why don't you just hire somebody to do it? You're terrible at this. So you can't please some. There's some. You just can't please some people. Now, all right. Now. I was talking earlier about an example. It occurred to me. Okay, this is a weird thought. I'm looking at the chef cook meals delivered fresh, and I was getting on the thought of cooking, and it occurs to me that most of the best breakthroughs we've had in cooking methods have consisted of hot air. Really, think about it. Okay, hot air. Hot air cooking. And I'm not talking an oven like baking in like a regular oven. I'm talking like hot air pumps. The hot air fryer. Have you ever seen these things? I covet them. I want one. I would love to have one. Among other things, I would love to have one of those, and I would love to have a bread baker. And one of those machines. Don't give me something that I have to knead and mix. But no. One of these bread baking machines, you just pour the ingredients in, push the button, and walk away. And I'm like, later, boom, loaf. I'm like, why is this not in every household in America? Anyway, the you got the hot air fryer, and I have seen it, and I've seen people who have taken them home and tested them and put the results on YouTube, and they're excellent. They use almost, they don't, you don't have to use all that oil or grease. And they showed making fried chicken in it. Came out, we're talking Kentucky Fried Chicken looking chicken. Excellently made chicken. Tater tots, cooking, grilling, broiling steak. Just everything. It's just just fabulous. It came out, and the people that tasted it, just marvelous. And I'm sitting there watching them, and I'm drooling all over myself. And it sits on your counter. It doesn't, I mean, look at an oven. Look at an oven. You got this huge oven. It takes up all this space, uses all that electricity, and it takes, and it doesn't do half as good a job. Then you have the food dehydrator. You can actually make a food dehydrator is very cheap. What it is, it's forced hot air that blows up through, dries it out, so you can store it for like years. That's a must-have, if you ask me. If you're even remotely survivalist-minded, prepper-minded. Let's call it prepper. Prepper is better, because you may not be in a situation where it's do or die, but you still, being prepared for hard times is always a good thing. Now, the hot air food dehydrator. You can buy a store-bought one, and you can also make one. Either way, the breakthrough in storing food, dehydrating it, and bake it. Here, write this down. Write this down. This will change your life. Well, it won't be a big change, but it'll be a change. This will change your breakfasts anyway. Bacon. You can cook bacon in a toaster oven or in an oven. You take your bacon, you lay it out in a pan, in a tray. Lay it flat. You stick it in the oven or the toaster oven, 400 degrees for 15 minutes. It comes out perfect. No burns. Not too crunchy, not too chewy, just right. Now you have to do it just, I believe they recommend laying a towel underneath the bacon, a paper towel in the trays, so it soaks up the grease. But I do it without that, and it comes out when you follow those instructions directly. Exactly, the bacon comes out perfect. You look photogenic too. It looks like it's off a commercial. So you don't have to stand over a fryer or over a skillet with bacon spitting everywhere. Or getting burns on your arms from it. You don't have to lurk over the frying pan to try and keep it from burning. Just perfect. Put it in, walk away. And here's another one. Hot, again, another example of hot air being a food breakthrough. Hot air popcorn popper. If you ask me, the hot air popcorn popper was the pinnacle of popcorn invention. Microwave popcorn packets, those are, if you ask me, those are a step back. Now, you take a hot air... I used to have one. I loved that thing, man. It was the bomb. I took it for a party at school, man. I was the hit of the place, because it's great. I mean, it doesn't take up much space. It's a tiny little thing, and it heats the hot. The hot air blows up through the popcorn kernels. It pops the popcorn, and the air lifts it out through the funnel and dumps it out in the bowl. And it pops nearly all the kernels, and it sifts the kernels out. It even melts the butter. You can control how much butter you have in there, and it's light and it's fluffy, and you don't have to use oil or anything like that. And you don't have a bowl. When you're done, you don't have a bowl full of unpopped kernels. It's just about the most perfect way to pop popcorn ever. You take a microwave popcorn packet, so those are convenient, but they still leave a lot of kernels in, and it's so tricky because you can go from half the kernels aren't popped yet to the popcorn is now on fire without any steps in between. And also, you can't control how buttery it is, because they throw in the prefab butter synthetic powder stuff into the packet before they seal it up. So the butter amount is fixed. So popcorn packets handy, but a step backwards from the air popper, if you ask me. And that's what that's another thing is crosses my mind is all these. There's a lot of inventions. I think that they went one step too far, trying just a little too hard to be a little bit more convenient, and instead losing what made them useful in the first place. The popcorn popper is the first, hot air popcorn popper, and everything that came after the hot air. It's the first example that comes to mind. Now, I honestly I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head. Particularly convenient. But you look around, we got a lot of things out there that have been tweaked just a little bit too much, and have sort of lost a bit of their utility. I think automobiles are approaching that, because more and more of what they're adding to an automobile isn't actually the automobile. What I mean is that most of the so-called improvements in automobile function are the result of slapping on computers and computer sensors onto it, to tweak it just a little bit further. Like all these systems are computer controlled in a modern car. The end result is you got something that's a lot more expensive, a lot more difficult to repair, a lot easier to break down if something happens to any of the circuitry inside the thing, for arguably marginal gains. All these, anti-lock this and navigate this, that, and cruise control, all these other little doohickeys that they put on to micromanage every function of the vehicle. It used to be the idea behind building a vehicle is that it was a self-contained system, it was a self-regulatory system that that did not need an outside monitoring system to pick and twiddle and fiddle with everything on the fly. Well, at least for the most part. There were some things, some things they added that were improvements, arguably over the, I mean, automatic. Can you imagine a car whose automatic transmission, instead of inventing a mechanical automatic transmission, they had decided to keep, the stick shift, but install a robotic arm to shift it for you? Try and picture that. The same concept is what I'm saying. Is that automatic transmission? It's integral to its structure. It doesn't need, it doesn't need circuits or wires or sensors or anything else. It works. It just works. But the modern approach seems to be to try and tweak out like 0.1% more performance by sticking a computer sensor on it and twiddling with the controls on it from the outside. That's not an improvement in engineering. And I think they've about reached the point of diminishing returns on it. You can only cyber up mechanical engineering. Computer engineering and can only contribute so much to the function of something created by mechanical engineering. Excuse me. Let me try and pull up my art program. Let's see here. I wanted to put up a strip for today. For sometime. I have to confess that one thing that seems to be holding me back is that whenever I start to do anything like that, it's like I look at it, I look at it and all that needs to be done to it, and then I look at all the other things that are stacking up behind it, and I just lose all. It's like, oh Lord, I'll never get this all done. And looking at it and realizing, oh, I've got so much to do, and there's so much more to be done, and I'll never get it all done, and it's like it just sucks the energy right out of me. Why the hell is there a white background here? Wait. There we go. A little factoid for you. A little factoid. I learned this. You know how everybody talks about how cats are cruel. Because they'll toy with something before they kill it. Most people don't realize this. Is that the reason that cats toy with small prey like that? It's to avoid injury. That way, by toying with a mouse or a squirrel or whatever, it tires the rodent out. It tires the prey out, so that when they finally go in for the kill, it's not going to be up to biting or scratching. That's how last thing a cat wants is for a desperate mouse or whatever to claw its eye out. By batting it around like they do, they disorient, they wear it out, and then when it's exhausted, they go in for the kill. It's not pettiness or cruelty or even they're not even doing it out of a sense of play. They're doing it for a very serious reason. It makes very interesting reading when you study up on it. Let's be honest, humanity has been around dogs for a much longer time than we've been around cats, on the order of at least couple of thousand or so years. and we've got a better grasp of how dogs think than how cats think, and that tends to throw us, because we observe a cat's behavior, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense to us, but it's very interesting, some of the things that do come out. Well, for instance, the reason everybody knows that, a cat bringing you a dead mouse or something and laying it on your shoes, that's supposed to be a gesture of affection. What most people don't realize is the reason they do that is because they're trying to teach you to hunt. Because again, that's how they teach a kitten to do it. They bring a dead or half-dead mouse and let the kitten deal with it. Now, it's also why when you scratch a cat's tummy, and then it'll just sort of flip out and just latch onto your arm. It's tussling with you, and again, that's how it teaches. That's how cats teach their kittens how to fight. Now, if a cat really wanted to hurt you, and I mean seriously really wanted to hurt you, you would be able to tell. Believe me, a cat just nyarf and latching onto your arm like that, not even close. When a cat is really pissed, you would think you'd stuck your arm into a weed eater, because they would be just a blur of fur, and you'd be going to an emergency room with your arm all tore up. No lie. What they're doing is they're totally they're trying to teach you how to spar, so to speak. In fact, it's the reason a cat meows at us. Cats normally do not vocalize by going meow. It's something they only do for human beings, and again for small kittens. Because most of the vocalizations a cat makes are in a range that human beings can't hear them. But they make that mewing noise at human beings and at kittens because a kitten's hearing isn't developed yet. In fact, it's been found that cats have developed an entire vocabulary of noises just for communicating with human beings. Essentially, most of the behavior of cats, most of the so-called, of the confusing behavior of cats is basically because they regard us as really large, exceptionally hopeless kittens. And they, that's the difference between a dog and a cat. A dog thinks, you're a playmate. You're the greatest thing ever. Oh, you're my new pal. You're a funny looking dog. But man, you're my cool pal. You can do all these cool things. You can make food come out of a box. You're awesome. Arf, arf, arf. Let's go throw the ball. Throw the ball. Throw the ball. That's awesome. I'll go get the ball. And they think you're the greatest dog ever. A dog thinks you're the greatest dog that ever lived. A cat is more like, oh Lord, what am I going to do with you? You can't hunt. You can't pounce. You can't jump. You just shuffle around in those bedroom slipper thingies. Why you like that? Come on. Here's the mouse. Come on, play with the mouse. Play the mouse. Why are you throwing the mouse away? You know, you're not pouncing on the mouse. Why aren't you pouncing on the mouse? You need to learn how to pounce on the mouse. I mean, look at you. You don't know how to pounce. You don't know how to climb. You know, what am I going to do with you? And look, your fur's a mess again. Here, hold still. Yeah. That's a little bit better. Well, we can let you go out in public now. What do you mean you can't hear me? I said meow. Now do you hear me? Yes, yeah, okay, now you hear me. Oh Lord, you're hard of hearing too. This is the saddest cat I've ever seen. I don't know what I'm gonna do to be able to help. You know, don't worry, I'll take care of you. But really, you know. That's what's going through your cat's mind, my man. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to do with this is a Camp Calamine comic strip. This is a Camp Calamine comic strip. One of the things I wanted to do with Camp Calamine, among other than just making fun of tree huggers, was that I was going to, from time to time, I wanted to put in, you know, useful tips. You know, about nature. About animals, about wildlife. I'm not a real woodsy person, but I did learn a few things as growing up. Things that most people don't, it's sad that they take for granted, or they just don't know it all. Now, but you know, it never panned out. Now, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Now, I'm looking up some stuff here. Man, I am so tired of some of this music. It's a little bit different. Okay, I've seen these. They've been advertising on my Facebook. These, you know, science experiments for little kids. You know, and or these little passports things or projects of themed from around the world. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's you know, the general idea is nice, I suppose, but you know, the science ones especially, I'm thinking is are they really teaching science, or are they just entertaining children who like to make a big mess? As somebody else pointed out, you've seen these "I love science" posts, you know, and they'll show a picture of a galaxy or something like that, or they'll describe some new technology that's been discovered. I love science, and one guy pointed out, no, you don't love science. You love all the shiny things it makes. But do you love the process? Do you love the method? Do you get a thrill from testing a hypothesis with an experiment? None of these little projects here. You know, they teach how to do something that everybody else has done before, to make a cool mess in a laboratory or in a classroom. But they're not about conducting an actual experiment, like, you know, they're not. They just the ones who are going to grow up to be scientists are the ones who aren't just dazzled by the display. They're going to be the ones that are enthralled by the process of discovery, of figuring out, you know, you know, coming up, discovering something in the world, coming up with a hypothesis of how it came to be, and then experimenting to discover the truth. That's, you know, that's science. You know, not just the fireworks display they put on your average you know, children's entertainment show. they don't show. You notice they always show the final conclusions. They never show the children how something was discovered. I think that's key. Of course, a lot of these shows that the story of dinosaurs millions and millions of years ago, and the ones that rely vastly on evolutionary philosophy. They would be considerably stumped if they were asked to show how they know this, their assertions are true. What experiment did they conduct? How did they test this hypothesis? How did they come to this conclusion? I'm sorry. I remember, lately I remember back when I was a boy. Everybody was convinced that dinosaurs were cold-blooded and slow and dim-witted. And in fact, it was commonly believed that many of the larger dinosaurs were so big that they had to have a second brain almost somewhere around their pelvis because it would take too long for information to reach from their tail to their head. No evidence for it, but they conclude, it's obviously necessary. It's science, no evidence for it, no ways to test. Of course, they've discovered fairly recently that a lot of the autonomic responses in our limbs, even mammals, they don't reach all the way to the brain. They get about as far as the spinal column. The nervous system isn't a it isn't a one-stop train track, from your fingertip all the way to the brain and then back again. No. But anyway, I remember when they were supposed. I remember when they started coming out when they first started coming out and saying that dinosaurs were possibly warm-blooded. I remember when they slowly started changing how dinosaurs were portrayed and drawn, and now, and some of the more preposterous assumptions they made, and now they're coming out and insisting that they found one species of dinosaur. They found one species of dinosaur with what looked like spines on it, thin spines or hairs, and they're swearing up and down, those are feathers. Those are vestigial feathers. They're not feathers, they're spines. And now every idiot on the planet is running around gluing chicken feathers on their models of dinosaurs. Even in World of Warcraft, it goes all the way to pop culture. World of Warcraft, they've got the latest expansion, Warlords of Draenor. One of the new territories called Zandalar. They have dinosaurs, and several of the species, surprise, surprise, several of the new species they introduce have feathers. No fossil evidence for it. No evidence for it at all. But they're so devoted to the evolutionary groupthink that says, we all know that birds evolved from dinosaurs, and that yes, we must never ever doubt what we could not possibly be sure about. There was one artist. One artist and scientist. He pointed out that the way dinosaurs are drawn, there are some rather ridiculous assumptions made about how they looked. We generally draw these creatures with with no meat on their bones, basically. And if you took a skeleton of most modern, what he did is he took several different skeletons of various modern animals and drew them using the same assumptions that dinosaur artists use for these science magazines, and well, the portrayal of a swan, nightmare fuel. Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Modern animals drawn as Here we go. That was fairly easy. Okay. Let me. I'd like to cover up the words, but no, that's not it. Guess what that is? It's the latest star from Jurassic Park, right? No, that's a baboon. That's a baboon drawn the way that, using the same assumptions that most of these artists use when they're drawing a dinosaur. This here's a zebra. Yeah, the basic common error is they take the skeleton, put it in a little muscle, never enough muscle, and then they shrink wrap the skin onto the shape. They ignores fat deposit, flaps of skin, soft tissue, and just the whole 9 yards. But this decides how they portray most of the dinosaurs in it. That and whatever is the latest fad, like currently feathers. This is a cow. The sleek racer of the plains, the milk cow. Here's your kitty cat. Of course, the point is that they have no way of knowing what these creatures would have looked like, and they make preposterous assumptions, and present them as gospel truths, and we regurgitate them thoughtlessly, and we call that a love of science. Look, here's your swan. Look at that. Nightmare fuel all the way down. Look at this. This is supposed to be a python. Here's your elephant. And this here, and to do it the other way around, this is an iguana with a layer of fur. This here, hummingbird. And going by how they do the typical, this is how a modern human being would look, using the same methods as most evolutionary biologists when they render what they think a dinosaur would look like. That'll keep you awake at night. They're know-nothings. They get these, they've got an education, but that doesn't mean that they know a darn thing. They make gross, broad assumptions. They ignore the wisdom of people with contrary evidence. And they call anybody that contradicts their ridiculous, baseless assumptions unscientific. Which is the modern version of heretic. I'm trying to pull this up. I'm trying to look through this. Oh, now here we're talking. Here we're talking. This is, oh yeah. I want this hoodie. Interesting. I have one thing I've always wanted. I want a bathrobe. I want a bathrobe, and I can't find anybody that makes a bathrobe the size that I want. I'm a big guy anyway, so. But what I want a great, big, huge bathrobe with a hood that hangs over my face like that does, and sleeves all the way down past the ends of my fingertips. Hangs, just big, long, hanging, baggy sleeves, and the bottom hem reaches all the way to the floor. I want to put that thing on. I want my neighbors to think a fat Emperor Palpatine has moved into the neighborhood. Boy, the Dark Lord's really let himself go. But that's what I want. but nobody makes them. You know, the biggest bathrobes I've bought. They'll list it as like triple XL, and I'll buy it, and it's like the sleeves are snug on my arms. What you selling these to midgets? And calling it triple X? What is this? You can't get what you want. It's almost impossible these days. Some days I'm just tired of mediocrity. Yeah, they caught Snopes has been caught approving passing off bogus stories as true, anti-GOP stories. Same old, same old. I'm looking through all this, checking for some other stuff. Oh, that ain't right. That scene. They got one of those. You've seen the pictures. You know why you don't put lights on a palm tree. You know why you don't put lights on a palm tree? Why you don't put Christmas lights on? That's why you don't put Christmas lights on a palm tree. That thing has been put up that picture has been put up on the internet every single, I've seen it posted up on Christmas time every single year for years now. I'd hate to have been the family that did this. And how do you do that and not notice after the first night? How do you not notice? Yeah. How do you not? And there's one of a city street where they put up the lights, and there was supposed to be a candle and a couple of Christmas decorations and holly leaves. It ended up looking like a ribbon tied around a ding-a-ling. And all up and down the street the same decoration. And nobody, how do you not notice? Okay. Get back to work. Get back to work, kitty. Get back to work, Ralphie boy. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Can't remember for sure whether I'm drawing his hair right or not. Oh well, welcome to the wide world of change. I'll tell you the truth, the reason I have always drawn Charles without his mouth is basically because I was imitating Dilbert. The reason, the artist who makes Dilbert, he says the reason that he gave Dilbert no mouth, it was sort of a reference to the voicelessness of the American office worker. And I have to agree that you know, this sort of represents his mouthlessness, Charles' mouthlessness, that is, sort of represents the voicelessness of the thousands of people, millions of people, who are conservative, right-wing, you know, and who love nature, and who go out and they are conservative, conservationists. And they go out and they put in the time and the hour and the work and the labor and the sacrifice to try and preserve nature, and you know, and not just, you know, mindlessly like these environmental PC monkeys do. And their common sense is lost in the noise. It comes as an incredible shock to some people, I think, the idea that even evil, greedy corporate barons don't want to drink dirty water. Or live in polluted, and you know, in polluted environments. You know, I won't deny in the least that there are many companies out there just reprehensible in their behavior. They treat what God has given them like crap. But companies that do that don't tend to survive because they don't know how to take care of they don't take care of what belongs to them. Most of environmental issues come down to the tragedy of the commons. You see, people will care for something if they believe it's theirs. But environmentalism runs on the theory that you don't have a right to anything. That it all belongs to the world. Or to humanity as a whole. It's a recorded fact that people that own private woodlands take better care of it than the government does. Then the government takes care of public lands. Why? Because it's theirs. It's theirs to care for. And more importantly, because it's theirs, they're able to take steps to take care of it when they have to. You take public lands, like, say, Yellowstone, and you got to sit around and wait for an army of bureaucrats and poster children for useless people who are going to spend months on end sitting around with their thumb up their butts, who can't make up their mind whether to fish or cut bait, to decide whether or not to, you know, gee, maybe we should put out that forest fire. They will continually operate with information that is out of date. They will, so to speak, fight last. They'll use everything they have to fight the last war they were in, rather than learn and change their approach. And spend all their time running around in a flood with a fire extinguisher. And if they don't get it wrong, what do they care? They're not going to get fired. They work for the government. A man who owns a mountain has a stake in it. A man who works for the government that says this mountain is government property, they don't have a stake in anything. They have a stake in it, making sure that they keep their job. As long as they can do that, they don't care what happens. Not nearly enough to sacrifice anything anyway. It's not a joke. I mean, it would be bad enough if environmentalists, if all their efforts, ended up null and void, if, it came to nothing, But environmentalists, radical environmentalists, they go out and the choices they make and the decisions they make and the policies they push cause more destruction by an order of magnitude than what they were trying to prevent. Even if it was a real crisis that they were trying to prevent. Consider the forests out in California, out in the West. The reason they have these horrible forest fires year after year after year, you see, the environmentalists got in. It used to be that the public forests were maintained and cultivated. They were a source. They were a national resource. Timber, material for wood, paper, all the thousands of things. The lumber industries would go in. They would cut fire trails, fire roads up into the forests, and they would also they would thin out the trees. They would cut down the dead wood, and they would kill off the trees that were infested with various parasites, beetles, mold, and other things, keeping the forest healthy. But the environmentalists didn't like that. All they saw is, the crunch of the chainsaws killing the trees. Well, and they passed laws preventing that, and they changed the regulations, and so the lumber companies could no longer go up into those hills, and the fire roads got overgrown and disappeared. Meanwhile, the forest kept growing more and more and more and more and more and more, and it got packed. to where they had, they said it's something like in some places there was 5 times as many trees in a given square footage than there should have been. And then there was a particular, one example. There's a particular beetle that got into the woods, and thousands and thousands and thousands, because they couldn't go in and cut out the diseased trees. It spread like wildfire, ironically, to thousands and thousands of acres. And these trees were killed, they died, and were left standing. And they stood out there in the heat and the weather. And they dried out, and the pit, and the sap in them turned to pitch, and basically it turned into a gigantic pitch-covered tinderbox. All that it would take was a single lightning strike, and whoosh, up it goes. And that's what's been happening out there over and over again, year after year after year after year. Millions of animals killed. Millions of acres of forest burned to the point where, with fire so hot that it scorched the ground several feet down, killing everything in the soil that, there's no coming back from it. It scorched the soil, killing off the bacteria that make, that enable the soil to retain its vitality and fertility. It's going to be decades, maybe even century or two, before that land is fertile again to grow so much as crabgrass. But these people felt so much better about themselves because they protected the trees. Then you heard about Klamath Basin. Nobody remembers Klamath Basin. Klamath Basin, it's an area out west. They came in, they put up a dam, created an artificial lake, and irrigated the land in the area, and all sorts of farms sprang up. It was a breadbasket, one of the major ones for the North American continent. It was a huge food source for America, and the environmentalists came in and they claimed that there was some sort of minnow or fish that lived in the lake that was endangered because the farmers in that area, the demand of the water, they were dropping they were letting more water out of the lake to meet demands during the dry season, and these poor little fishies were weren't getting enough water. Total flamjammery. But they went up there and they shut off the water, all completely, to protect this stupid fish. Get a mayonnaise jar, you jackass. Get a mayonnaise jar, scoop them up, take them someplace else. Hurrah, the species is saved. But no, they shut off the dam, shut off the water, and all these farms, thousands and thousands, started dying. These farms shut down. They lost their livestock. They lost their crops. They had to shut down. They lost their farms and they had to move away. And these environmentalists were turning this region, which science and progress had turned into a fertile valley, they were turning it into a dust bowl. The farmers got desperate. They rounded up guns and pitchforks, marched up on the dam, broke in, and opened the water again. Of course, they sent out troops who turned the water back off and stationed guards. And that was the end of who knows how many hundreds of farms that fed America. There was no evidence that the fish was in any danger. All it meant is all that the water use meant was that the lake was going to go down. The artificial lake was going to go down several feet more than usual. No proof that the fish were endangered in any way. But that didn't matter to the environmentalists, because they have a crusade and a holy cause and a religion. And the First Church of Al Gore says that the little fishies have to be saved, and screw the human farmers. I have not heard a word of what has happened since then. It's just the last I've heard of it. I've looked, I haven't been able to find anything new. But my Lord, the wickedness of it, the utter wickedness of it. Even if the community bounced back from that, even if the farmers, by the time, even by the last I heard, it was hundreds of farmers who had already lost their land. They had to give up, and they had to give up farming and leave. What they don't tell you is that a lot of this environmentalist crap, it's a scam, and a bigger scam than you think. Standard procedure: they go in, they find a patch of land, a rather valuable piece of land that people own, and they're starting to build on it. They will scout out, and they will find proof that it's an environment for an endangered species, and they'll pass and they'll get an injunction passed, and that everybody owns the property. The people that own the property, that sacrificed everything to buy it, can no longer build on it. And they have to go through all sorts of paperwork for anything that they do have on it, and they turn up the pressure and turn up the pressure and until eventually the value of the property, nobody wants to touch it, because the environmentalists are holding, the EPA's after it, and the value of the property falls just straight down the well, poof, gone. And then these activist groups move in, buy the property, buy the land at pennies on the dollar, if that, and then resell it for an obscene fortune. And what a surprise, once they own the property, all those little environmentalist problems just disappear. A considerable number of farmers, in response to these environmentalist wackos, have resorted to their own environmental preservation methods, namely shoot, shovel, and shut up. If they see anything on their land that looks like an endangered species, they'll kill it, bury it, and not say a word to anybody. It comes down to a choice between cute fluffy bunnies and little birdies and their family and their livelihood. Cute fluffy bunny's going to lose out. These people aren't, these people, there's a lot of them involved that don't give a damn about the environment anyway. They're in it for the money. They're in it for the scam. It's an easy way to steal millions and millions of acres of land, sell it to the government or to other organizations for a small fortune. Sooner or later, it's going to dawn on the ones that actually do care about the environment that the worst possible step you can make for protecting an endangered species is make it a nuisance to have it on your land. If they wanted to protect these species, what they'd be doing is they'd be going out and they'd be paying people to have these critters on their land. And they would go well out of their way to make it worth their while to make room for these critters. They don't do that. They don't do that. They punish people for having animals on their own land. They steal from them. Their real interest is self-evident. There's a special roasting spit in hell waiting for these people. I swear there is. Oh, here's another thing for you. Recycling. If you ever meet anybody, you know, it's recycling is so wonderful. Recycling, great, grand, good. Recycling, good. Recycling, you know. It's a very simple thing. It's a very simple thing. If recycling was efficient, they'd pay you for your trash. That's how it works with aluminum foil. That's how it works with aluminum. That's why aluminum is, you know, this is why you can make money recycling aluminum cans. Because, you know, due to the physics of how aluminum is made from its ore, it is actually safer and cheaper to make you know, to melt down old aluminum and recycle it. Copper too, to some degree. And consider this: aluminum is dirt cheap. Aluminum is dirt cheap. It's one of the most plentiful metals in the earth. But it's still profitable to buy scrap aluminum from Joe Average on the street and melt it down for resale. If recycling was actually efficient, it would be profitable. If it was profitable, the trash companies would be paying to pick up your trash. And it might be someday. It might actually be someday. The technology for sorting and recycling waste is nowhere near where it would need to be. Consider that in the Questroverse, in Quint Space Ranger, the fact that they have recycling, you know, they have fabbing machines that can recycle just about anything, means that in their society, you don't pay for people to pick up your trash; they pay to take it from you. Assuming you don't just recycle it yourself with your own home fabber. But it's not. In fact, it's incredibly wasteful. It costs, you know, it just consumes so much energy and so much resources to recycle. It costs you more it costs more to make to recycle old paper than to make new paper. One of the reasons for that is that we use wood pulp paper. Wood pulp is terrible for making paper. You see, wood pulp, it has very short fibers, and that means that it doesn't stick together very well. You know how it goes. You know, they take the wood pulp and they soak it in water, and then they mash it out flat, and it'll dry in a big sheet. That's you know, rudely speaking, just how they make paper. But they also, you know, because the fibers are so short, they have to add all sorts of chemicals to it. Paper plants are some of the worst polluting ones out there, right up there with the ones that make rechargeable batteries. Water pollution, air pollution, it's just a mess. It's just nasty. Now, there are other things that work much better as for making paper, and they're much easier to recycle to boot. Hemp paper and cotton paper. Those two, you know, cotton and hemp. Yes, the marijuana plant. They have nice long fibers, which means that's why they're so easy. You can use hemp or cotton to make wood. You can use hemp or cotton to make cloth, rope, paper. Same reason, long fibers. You don't have to use all the chemicals that go into wood pulp paper either. And cotton and hemp both grow back annually, as opposed to wood pulp paper, which takes several years to grow the tree farm, for the tree farm to grow the trees back. But that's the reason. That's the reason that people joke about the lumber cartel. Is that the lumber companies were the ones who largely backed the push for the outlawing of marijuana, because marijuana, it's hemp. The plant, the marijuana plant, that's hemp. And so we cost ourselves a multi-million-dollar industry that could have saved millions of dollars in cleanup and prevented tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of pollution. All because some granny clutcher pearls, bunch of busybodies, got upset that Mexican transient workers were smoking a little ditchweed after work. I have a real problem. I've got several Christian friends that they'll even accept the idea that you can drink wine. They'll accept they accept the idea of drinking wine or beer or other things, and realize that it's not forbidden in the Bible. In fact, I'm sorry, Jesus passed. One of Jesus's first miracles was making wine for a wedding. Come on, hello, wake up, ding ding. And no, it wasn't alcohol-free grape spritzer, okay? The lies people will tell themselves to perpetuate their own beliefs. But presented with the same idea that maybe hemp isn't, the devil's grass, and they balk. Even though the Bible hasn't even got it, even though the Bible has something to say about wine, it doesn't have a dang thing to say about marijuana. But we can extrapolate the general principle: temperance in all things. Is that God? There's no problem with marijuana any more than there is with wine. There's no biblical problem with it, other than the fact that people are stupid about it, and you don't want to cause them grief just for your own indulgences. So you abstain for the sake of their conscience, at least until they smarten up enough to know better. But they'll accept the idea that wine can be consumed by, but they present them the idea of a Christian smoking a doobie, and just boom, everything flies off the hinges. They just come apart at the seams. I'll say this: I wouldn't recommend it for about a dozen different reasons. I would say that using marijuana, even if it was legal in every state, I would suggest abstaining from it, or at least being very, very, very temperate about how you use it, because look, it's like anything. You can become very easily reach a point where you're using it in ridiculous excess. Of course, this is something to consider, that one of the things about it is that thanks to the drug war, the only people that were using drugs were the kind of people who would use it in excess. So, but, again, going on. Even then, a lot of the stats they give out for, the marijuana has destroyed their lives, not true. Consider there has never been a single case of somebody overdosing on marijuana. Now, there have been people who smoked marijuana, then gone out and, gotten OD'd on something else they added to the party mix. People are stupid like that. But the government at one point tried to experiment to see if they could weaponize marijuana. It was apparently regarded as a failure, because they had the test subjects, and they gave them massive doses of marijuana, of THC, and of the other chemicals. There's more than just THC in marijuana, by the way. There's another chemical that's also an intoxicant, but it's also a counterbalance to THC in some ways. I forget what it's called, but anyway, they basically gave them super dope. They gave them higher and higher doses, and one group, the final group, they were blasted off like a rocket, and but their body temperature went a little out of whack, beyond that, they couldn't find their feet for 2 or 3 days, but they came out of it completely unharmed. Apparently, the lethal dose for marijuana is it's so high that it's pretty much the same as the universal lethal dose. which is the dosage where pretty much anything will kill you at that level. Water has a lethal dose. And it's a lot lower than you think. They can, it's just the Christian community. They can accept the idea of people consuming wine or alcoholic beverages, but the idea of somebody using a spliff, somehow that just throws them off the rails. What can you say to that? I mean, there are people with all sorts of little hypocrisies like that. I think it's, just human nature. My parents, they would die before going to a movie theater. Because growing up in the community they grew up in the regions, going to a movie theater was, morally questionable and decrepit. They were Jim Dandy fine with renting a video player and about a stack of movies from Blockbuster. And I'm like, wait a minute. Don't question, Of course, he also didn't think to, he was perfectly fine with taking those. My father was perfectly fine with taking those VHS tapes, copying them at home. He rented two DVD player. He rented a DVD player. We bought a DVD player. He rented one and then brought home a bunch of movies and copied them over onto VHS tapes. Can you say copyright violation? And he got torqued at me because I got a little, I had an attack of conscience about it, and he got all torqued and disgusted with me for being so backwards. Somehow he managed to read the warning, the FBI warning at the start of every video, and conclude that so long as he wasn't showing these movies in a movie theater and making money off them, then it was okay for him to copy them. We never did get rid of those tapes. Of course, to be fair, copyright law is screwy. Very screwy. Consider that everybody records TV shows. Everybody records TV shows, and it's apparently perfectly acceptable. Now, originally the movie makers and the TV companies threw a fit about video recorders. Guess where most of their money comes from now? Adapt or perish, man. You look at how the British handle this sort of thing, where basically you have to pay a license to own a TV set. My God, if they tried that in this country, there'd be another American Revolution. The Brits never seem to learn. In many ways, Great Britain was the birthplace of human liberty, because this was where America got its foundational principles from. But man, did they abandon them quick. There are probably third world countries now that have more personal liberties than you can get in England. Wouldn't want to live there. Wouldn't really even want to visit. I remember the last Olympics that was done in London. It was sad. It was kind of sad in a way. I mean, we're talking about a country that had thousands of years of history. Nearly, over 1,000 years of history. And what do they do with it? What was their opening, the opening show for the Olympics? It was themed around Mary Poppins, Harry Potter, Mr. Bean, Doctor Who, every piece of pop crap culture that they had made a fortune of selling to Americans. And I'm like, what? Tell me that isn't kind of sad. Like I'd pay someone to clean out the trailer of trash. Yes, I would pay somebody to, if I had the money to do it. And if I could find somebody who would take the payment. I swear to God, you can imagine how much these home cleaning services cost. The big professional ones probably cost about as much as the trailer did. What can I say? What can I say? I would much rather do it myself, but the last time I tried to haul a bunch of trash out, darn, I gave myself a cardiac trying to get just one bag down the stairs. Every now and then I'll manage to get like 2 or 3 bags of trash out. Then I'm flattened for the rest of the day. To say nothing, the fun of trying to walk backwards. Down my front steps. Then lumbering my way back up them. I'm not lying, and I'm not exaggerating when I say climbing the front steps in my own front, on my front door, leaves me winded. I just want you to understand that I'm not being lazy. Plus, I've got a lot of junk in here that is just junk. Literally, not necessarily trash, but stuff that just needs to be hauled out. I gotta think. I'm trying to think. Thinking, but nothing's happening. Think later I'm gonna broil up some hamburgers. Got a hamburger. Make hamburger patties. Wrap them in bacon. Make a hamburger patty. Wrap it around the side in bacon. Stick it in the toaster oven. Broil it. tasty burger, bacon burger. Right now, I ain't paying nobody for nothing. Can't afford it. I have completely lost my train of thought again. Yeah, some senator says we could nuke them. Well, basically says, so what are they going to do? We have the nuke. Not quite the same thing, but yeah, stupid sentiment. It's in the same vein of those people that say, oh, like you're going to resist the government with your gun. They've got planes and bombs and tanks. They can make you do whatever they want. Yeah. These same people who say that the American people could never resist the government with shotguns or rifles are the same ones who sneer about how America's military lost a war against rice farmers who had nothing but, rifles and pistols. Isn't it interesting how the people who say that we could never, we would never stand a chance with nothing but our guns are desperate to take them away from us all the same? I think they dang well know how good of a chance we'd stand. Better than we'd stand if we let them take our guns away, that's for darn sure. Nobody listens. Nobody learns. Nobody wants to hear. As Kipling put it, till the gods of the copybook headings with terror and slaughter return. For those who don't know, there's a poem called The Copybook Headings by Rudyard Kipling. And the thing about Rudyard Kipling is he was living at a time and a day and age where basically the British Empire was sliding into the state of decay that America is starting on now. this state of self-loathing and abandonment of the principles that founded it. And he would have been he would be what we would call today a conservative. And this poem, "The Gods of the Copybook Headings." The copybook headings, a copybook was basically it was a writing exercise for young children. And you'd get a sheet of paper, lined paper, with a particular phrase up at the top. Usually a old, an old proverb or wise saying up at the top, and you were supposed to copy it over and over again to practice your handwriting. And then these were copybooks, and most of these. And he was going on his poem, "The Gods of the Copybook Headings," was about how people would forget the morals and principles and the values of the past, and what he called the gods of the copybook headings. These old sayings would start sort of these old principles would come around, and eventually, you could lie to you. Basically, his poem was about how society could lie to itself for as long as possible, but the inevitable, slow, the truth would eventually catch up with us. And the gods of copybook headings someday, after all their enlightened progressive ideas had finally gone kabang, here would come the gods of copybook headings to stand there and say, "We told you so." Here, let me find it. Okay, let's see, the gods of the copybook sayings. As I pass through my incarnations in every age and race, I make my proper prostrations to the gods of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall, and the gods of the copybook headings, I notice, outlast them all. We were living in trees when they met us. They showed us each in turn that water would certainly wet us and fire would certainly burn. But we found them lacking in uplift, vision, and breadth of mind. So we left them to teach the gorillas while we followed the march of mankind. We moved as the spirit listed, they never altered their pace, being neither cloud nor windborne like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up with our progress, and presently word would come that a tribe had been wiped off the ice field or the lights had gone out in Rome. With the hopes that our world is built on, they were utterly out of touch. They denied that the moon was Stilton. They denied she was even Dutch. They denied that wishes were horses. They denied that a pig had wings. So we worship the gods of the marketplace, who promised these beautiful things. When the Cambrian measures were forming, they promised perpetual peace. They swore if we gave them our weapons, that the wars of the tribes would cease. But when we disarmed, they sold us and delivered us bound to the foe. And the gods of the copybook headings said, stick to the devil you know. On the first Feminian sandstones, we were promised the fuller life, which started by loving our neighbor and ended by loving his wife, till our women had no more children, and the men lost reason and faith. And the gods of the copybook headings said, the wages of sin is death. In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised abundance for all, by robbing selected Peter to pay for collective Paul. But though we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. And the gods of the copybook headings said, if you don't work, you die. Then the gods of the market tumbled, and their smooth-tongued wizards withdrew, and the hearts of the meanest were humbled, and began to believe it was true, that all is not gold that glitters, and two make four. And the gods of the copybook headings limped up to explain it once more. As it will be in the future, it was at the birth of man. There are only 4 things certain since social progress began: that the dog returns to his vomit, and the sow returns to her mire, and the burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wabbling back to the fire. And that after all this is accomplished, and the brave new world begins, when all men are paid for existing, and no man must pay for his sins. As surely as water will wet us, as surely as fire will burn, the gods of the copybook headings with terror and slaughter return. We live in an age that humanity's always been stuck in. The desperate desire to believe that they can get something for nothing. The desire to do as they please, no matter the consequences, and insist that it is somebody else's fault and somebody else's responsibility to make sure that they can do as they please and still remain safe. You will never see anybody more angry than somebody who is told, for the 1000th time, that no, socialism doesn't work. That no, free love doesn't work. Love wins. No, it doesn't. That is not love. Sorry. Love wins, but what you speak of is not love. Somebody who truly loves someone will not encourage them to engage in behavior that will harm them. It's been demonstrated over and over that the sexually deviant lifestyle, the homosexual lifestyle, is harmful to human beings. It's harmful. Just the mortality rate alone would make any person give pause. If you attributed the mortality rate and the early death rate of homosexuality to any product or any activity on the planet, within an hour it would be abolished by these wet Nancies. You point out the participants in this activity usually die several decades younger than normal. The suicide rate, the rate of suicide rates, the rate of psychological problems, emotional problems, and a miscellany of venereal and highly intimate diseases is through the roof. Oh, we got to ban this product. No, but then they find out it's you're talking about sodomy. You're talking about homosexuality. They say, "Oh, you homophobe." Okay, let's start off with I'm not scared of homosexuals. All right, that's what homophobe implies, that I'm fearful of it somehow. That that isn't even that isn't even in the spectrum of what I think or feel about the issue. Exasperation, disappointment, frustration with people who advocate it. Irritation, pity. I feel a certain distinct existential dread about what God will eventually have to do to this nation if it doesn't repent of its sin. And here's something to consider, is that those of us who know better are going to be held accountable for not teaching better. We're going to have to look at God, and He's going to ask us, why couldn't you guide these people away from this? Why didn't you warn them? Why didn't you tell them? Why were you so cautious? Well, we didn't want to offend them. only do so much, but we're still going to be held accountable for not doing everything we could. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. If we do not preserve the way salt is supposed to preserve, then that's on our heads. I've got enough sins of my own that I'm going to stand before God. That I have to kneel before God now and repent. Knowing that He's going to look at us and goes, "We gave you, I gave you this nation. I gave you this land. I gave you all this possibility and these opportunities, and as a people, you failed." That's one of the things I worry about. That I have dread of. Only a fool isn't afraid of something that could destroy them. Because when God's judgment comes down, the splash zone is a little indiscriminate. Does that sound like I'm saying that God is unfair? No. What I'm saying is that when God brings judgment upon a nation, it comes down on the whole nation. We're not going to be walking around with, in a little force field bubble watching while everything else goes to hell. That's what makes evil evil. Is that when somebody indulges in evil, it's not just them that gets burned. When evil is allowed to flourish, even in yourself, some innocent somewhere suffers. Eventually. You let people, you take a person who is a thief and an irresponsible thief, put them in power in the government. They embezzle from a company. Or you take for example, I'm trying to spit out an example. For example, you take somebody who's an irresponsible thief. He goes out and he steals from his company, he embezzles. Somebody else, and the company goes bankrupt. Dozens to thousands of innocent people lose their jobs. Some little boy or girl who never even knew this guy's name, never seen him before in their life, go to bed hungry because daddy lost his job because this worthless nobody somewhere in the corporate system decided to steal. Evil doesn't remain in a bubble. You let people who are sexualized. Look at the innocent people who died of AIDS from blood transfusions. That polluted blood did not get in there by accident. Somebody out there was leading a sexually depraved lifestyle, went in, donated blood, and their sin killed somebody else. Or at the very least, they see you behaving in a reprehensible manner. They decide that it's if you're not going to abide by the rules, they're not going to abide by the rules. You survive the drug overdose. They don't. You get drunk and get driven home by your, your limousine driver. They get drunk, drive themselves home, and end up wrapped around a Christmas tree, Wrapped around a tree on the side of the road, rather. And, this is what I'm talking about. Evil doesn't exist in a vacuum. When we indulge, other people burn. When our society permits depravity to run loose in the streets, it pays. Now, you recall that when September 11th struck, when we were attacked by those terrorists, there was a televangelist minister came forward and said this was God's judgment on America. How dare he say that, right? How dare he say that? He was right. Like, prior to September 11th, this nation put a prior to September 11th, this nation put a depraved, lecherous, drunken criminal in the highest office of land. And when presented with his wrongdoing, we turn and say, oh, well, he's just a naughty boy. He's so entertaining. And we did nothing about it. The man has been, the Clintons have a trail of bodies behind them, okay? They're not some cute little mischievous, crooked mayor from some Mayberry-style sitcom in the 50s. They're criminals. And everything that they were accused of, everything they had done, any one of the things that Hillary and Bill Clinton have done in the time they've been put in power, since they were first put in power, any one of those things would have been a life, 20 to life for the rest of us. But we kept him in power, in spite of his sexually repulsive behavior, in spite of the fact that he was accused not merely of being a licentious man, but of being a sexual assailant. The man was accused, by a literal herd of women of sexual molestation, assault, harassment. The people in power swept it under the rug, and the people of the nation got surly and insolent that they should be expected to care. Here's the culmination. The Clinton administrations were the culmination of decades of self-serving licentiousness, permissiveness, and apathy, and moral apathy. I submit to you that the President, as leader of the United States military and its law enforcement branch, he is the executive, he is in charge, he is part and parcel of the watchers on the wall. The ones who are supposed to be wide awake and vigilant while the rest of us are sleeping, defending us against threats, foreign and domestic. He was too busy abusing his power to be paying attention to his job. He was asleep at the wheel, or face down in an intern's crotch. He was asleep at the wheel for 8 years, while Osama bin Laden and his merry little bunch of monkeys were brewing up. He put more effort into trying to destroy an honest businessman, Bill Gates, than he did in all 8 years trying to track down this enemy of the state. And we paid for it. His negligence, his failure to do his job. We ended up with 20 terrorists sitting around our country for a decade, waiting, just waiting for the right moment. And then September 11th. These guys didn't come over here in just a couple of months. They'd been here in America for decades. Well, not decades, but years. God made it clear he wasn't, when a nation went off the rails, when a nation turned wicked, he would turn them over to their enemies. Let them, he would simply lift away his protecting hand and let them suffer the consequences. And people got all upset because he said, we were and are a nation of sexual and social self-indulgence and indolence, and we are surprised that our enemies took advantage of our drunken slackness to spring an attack on us, and that anybody dared say that this was a consequence of our own wickedness. God forbid that a man of the church should come out and say that perhaps our culture of sexual depravity, abortion, and everything else didn't exactly warm the heart of the Almighty. God forbid anybody, from the church say that. consider that even then, even though, but getting back to the original point of my discussion, is that even if you disregard our own negligence that let this evil fester, that was our sin. But and just focus on the fact that these 19 terrorists, they committed this incredible act of evil, and that is their sin and their evil deed. They committed the evil deed. 3,000 people suffered the consequence. Evil does not exist in a vacuum. And we are still committed, and consider this. It was also our slackness in condemning evil and in not allowing it in our front door that let these Muslim extremists into our country in the first place. We look at Islam, we look at the history of Islam, we know the truths about Islam, we refuse to condemn it. And if you don't think that's a sin, woe unto those who call a good thing evil and an evil thing good. Anybody that sits there and says, "Oh, but Islam is such a religion of peace," woe unto them. Islam is not, and never has been, and never will be a religion of peace. Excuse me. Because we lied to ourselves about it, we ended up with terrorists in our country, waiting their turn to kill as many Jews and infidels as they could. Because we still refuse to call the devil by his name to his face, we are as vulnerable as we ever were. It is only divine providence that has prevented another major attack happening on American soil. Because we refuse, because our wickedness is we refuse to do what is necessary. We're too frickin' enlightened for that. And it's going to cost us. That warm glow and bright sunny light that they, that warm glow and that brilliant light that they see and feel that makes them, that they think comes from being enlightened, what it is their house burning down. It's not to be surprised. When anybody, people who refuse to call something evil that is evil, they are going to be slack about calling anything evil eventually. In order to maintain the lunacy that they call a philosophy, they have to abandon all common sense, all objectivity, all ability to discern. And as a consequence, they have a moral resistance. They have a resistance to calling good or evil by name. Denial, not just a river in Egypt. I think I'll add the text later. I've got dangerously munchy habits here. The dangerous, yeah. I tend to let's see if I went, and I've gone through. I've eaten all my cheese nips, all my little cheese crackers. I ate all the goldfish crackers. I ate all the Pop-Tarts. Those went quick. Got the popcorn. I've eaten a couple bags of popcorn. I don't eat much popcorn. Generally because of the hulls. It gets stuck in my teeth. It's really painful. So I tend to be sparse about how often I eat popcorn. 'Cause, dental floss costs money. And well, I've got two big little tubs here, little plastic tub thingies of Planters dry roasted peanuts. I'm wondering. I'm seriously contemplating, seeing if I can find some way to honey roast them. Double roasted honey roasted peanuts. Yeah, I've got some honey and I've got some peanuts, and I love honey roasted peanuts. And I'm thinking maybe I just drench them in honey, and stick them in the toaster oven. Nom 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 nom. I have still got like a dozen boxes of sugar-free Jell-O and a dozen boxes of sugar-free pudding mix. Both mixes. I'm like, I'm going to have to be beyond urgent to eat those. Well, first of all, you're not going to fill up on Jell-O anyway, but sugar-free, if I eat a lot of sugar-free stuff, if I eat sugar-free, the artificial sweeteners give me I have a tendency to get headaches from them. It's like, this pudding was delicious. Ow, 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 ow! I have no idea why they put these children's songs in with all these other songs. I guess it's randomizing. I don't know nothing. Alright. Trying to decide if I want to get something to eat or whether I'm craving something or what. I'm a little hungry, but deciding on what macaroni and cheese. I got you sent me a packet of those box of those little instant make in the microwave macaroni and cheese. They're good. They're good. I've got macaroni and cheese boxes in the cabinet, but they've been in there a while. And the last couple I opened, the macaroni powder, it fossilized into a brick. The macaroni, the cheese powder in the packet. I opened the packet up, and instead of a powder pouring out, I get little rocks, little yellow rocks. It did not go well. Whew. I think what I'm going to do, I think I have a can of Chef Boyardee spaghetti left over. I'm going to make some of that macaroni. I'm going to make some of that macaroni and cheese. And I'm going to mix it with my Chef Boyardee spaghetti. To thicken it up. That's the thing about Chef Boyardee spaghetti, it's almost soup. Too much marinara, not enough noodles and meat. What's really telling is that the meatballs are made out of beef, pork, and chicken. The beef of, the all-American livestock animal, the beef, pork, and chicken. We breed them on farms right next to the turducken. It doesn't cluck or moo or oink, it just sort of goes north. Maybe I'll cook up a little hamburger too, throw that in on top. Yum num num. Of course, that's kind of involved, so I can't exactly just jump up and poke it in the microwave real quick, so that'll have to wait until later. Oh yeah, Anita Sarkeesian is back in the news. She just won't die. She's making the BioWare developers at EA the developers at BioWare are not thrilled with her. Do we really need to guess, what she did? She's openly said, come on, she has openly said that her philosophy is everything is sexist. And it's your job, and it's my job to point it out. That's her philosophy. If she believes any philosophy at all, I'm of two minds of whether she is really that bonkers, really that divorced from reality, or she is simply a cynical exploiter. Because being able to play a mouthpiece for imaginary victims has made her rich. Her and Zoe Quinn both. They even got to the point where they addressed the United Nations about the sexism inherent in video games and how this meant that the internet needed to be controlled by the UN. So, does she believe any of this, or is she just exploiting people's gullibility? I don't know, and does it really matter? And could she possibly be both? Why not both? What can you do with that? This woman is actively working 24 hours a day to undermine one of the pillars of Western civilization, which is the relationship between men and women. Till the women no longer had children. And I really love how men are being blamed for the failure of relationship between men and women. Just absolutely adore that, One thing I'm absolutely out of today that I could really use: Alka-Seltzer. It's part of the reason I haven't had much sleep the last couple of nights, because I woke up in the middle of the night with heartburn and I didn't have anything for it. And I'm talking like, your stomach is trying to digest your esophagus kind of heartburn. Gotta be careful, one of the examples, I have plenty of food in the house, so I'm not paying much close attention to what I'm eating, and I usually end up paying for it with, and a little bit more, and a little more, and, just a, really bad day,
I fart in your general direction.
So, it just gets kind of rough. Oh, excuse me. You wake up and you're burning up, and your throat is just acidic, and you go into the bathroom and you pull down that box of Alka-Seltzer and you open it up and there's none left. That's really a bad moment, let me tell you. Some of the buttons on my yeah.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Lend me a kiss, my wine. Baby, my heart's on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you lose me. Then you'll be left alone. Oh, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own.
Okay. Oh yeah, Pastor Gas. I've seen that one. It's funnier every time you see it too. There's like 3 or 4 editions of it now. That reminds me. I think I'm going to send my dad an email. There's like 4 or 5 versions of it. Reverend Robert Tilton. Come on, computer. Giddy up.
Watch this. For I have seen all that I've seen what Laban's done unto. Oh, isn't that amazing? And my word will not return void, and it will go to that which it was sent. And it will prosper. But life and joy and the nature of God. Oh, hallelujah. And bread for eating will also provide and multiply. Oh, that's the opening of the windows of heaven. This is decreeing faith. Decreeing a thing.
I gotta wonder what the guy thinks of it.
Peter first was in fear when Jesus told him to launch out. It's amazing when the Lord speaks to you.
Call me
The
right
timing.
620-6200. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Let's get the vows and all the prayer requests here. What time do we have? 2 will see the glory of God. Hallelujah.
And my word will not return void, and it will go to that which it was sent. And it will prosper. And now listen to this. You go a little further. You get the one, God's for you. You get, He's with you. And then the last biggie, God's in you. Wow, man. But learning how to release your faith. I just heard the Lord say, it is a spirit.
And bread for eating will also provide and multiply. Oh, that's the opening of the windows of heaven. He was eating steak and having water from the brook and bread, fresh cooked bread. I can smell that bread right now. Hallelujah. I can smell that bread right now. Hallelujah. God's cooking something up for you. Hallelujah.
The part where he was running was the best one so far.
Bread. God's cooked the ovens of heaven. Heaven's bakery.
Okay, that's an I'm an awful person. I'm a bad person. Okay, well, he was a bad person, so I really don't care. But just here, let me fix in this window capture. Come on. Come on, computer. It's bogging down. Send this to my mom to send to my dad. Okay, yeah, they're gonna process another payment. Yeah. Still paying for this chair. I'm gonna try and rearrange this. I've got my old chair, which I'm sitting in, which is literally broken so much I'm sliding sideways out of it. I've got my new chair, which is just a hair too high, and something about it's built so it's angled forward. I'm gonna get some blocks and stuff, and block up this new chair and sit in it, and hopefully that'll be more comfortable. Okay, yeah, I'm just... I'm wondering if I'm going to get an outraged response from my mother or from my father, or whether my dad's just going to laugh his butt off. Let's see. Some days you just gotta shake things up, even if... I think it was my father that introduced me to July as baked bean month. My, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Oh, ow, 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 ow. Ow, darn. Okay, let's see here. I'll be right back in a second. Okay, I'm not really. I'm sort of wasting bandwidth here with this. Just not really doing anything right now. Okay. Well, of course he was a con artist. It was as obvious as the day is long. You didn't exactly have to be a theologian to know he was full of crap. And apparently full of a few other things as well. I think I may have just confused my parents by sending them that. But okay, gotta really. Like I said, I've been working on the latest chapter of The Great Alicorn Hunt. It's been kind of slow going. Only been typing a couple of lines every now and then. It's just this is going to be sort of a a bits and pieces chapter, little odds and ends to close out the Windy City arc. See what things that just sewing up a few loose points, and then getting a quick look in on pretty much everybody else. After going to New Orleans, I'm trying to contemplate on where to take Rarity and Sweetie Belle next. Are there a lot of I haven't been watching TV at all. I don't watch TV at all. Are there any really big televangelists still out there? I haven't seen any. You know, I mean, I grew up in the in the 70s and 80s. That was like their heyday, I suppose you could call it. And no, not any. No, no. Yes, no, maybe, possibly. 2002. That panther. I drew that panther in 2002. Wow. 16 years ago. That drawing of a tattoo is older than some of my audience. It was supposed to be a tattoo. Somebody asked me if I could draw him a quick sketch for an idea for a tattoo. He didn't go with it, but I drew that, and he like, but that drawing is old enough to drive a car now. Go figure. I wonder if there are, you'd figure, televangelists, you'd figure, radio evangelism. There's still some radio stations at Christian radio stations that have been going strong since my parents were babies. They went from radio evangelism to television evangelism. Doesn't seem to be much in the way of internet evangelists that I've seen. Except for the fringe nuts and flakes. Become a televangelist in 30 days. Study with our program. Become a registered theologian. La 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 la. But yeah, is what I'm saying. You don't see a lot of breakout. There's just no big stars in the field anymore. They became too big for Hollywood. Hollywood became too small. Well, what can you say? Okay, it is 9 o'clock. It is 9 o'clock, and I'm just spinning my wheels here, talking, and really not talking about anything of import. So I'm sorry, I'm just not. Yeah. I used to think that I could. I used to think I could just plug this in, just do it all day. One day I just plug it in the morning and just do it all day, draw and write and talk and blah 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 for hours on end, and I'd be able to do it. And then here I am, and 4 hours later, and I'm just, like no. And I've gotten one comic done. That's something. It's. I would like to so much remember what it feels like to be fully rested and refreshed, you know? I don't wake up feeling refreshed. I wake up feeling tired, and then I lie there, and then I sit there until I feel awake enough to be functional. And I'm not really all that functional. It's contemplating. Now, there's one thing I've been thinking of. And the more I think of it, the more I'm tempted to do it, because I've seen other writers do it, putting up a little Patreon notice on my fan fictions. You know, something along the lines of, if you want to support my regular work, I have a Patreon. I'm debating that. My first thought is that if anybody complains, I can just pull it down, no big deal. My second thought is that nobody is that sensible anymore. Their first reaction will be to yank my Patreon, and I'll have to go through all sorts of rigmarole again to get something else set up, and it'll be a disaster. So. Nobody's that sensible anymore. I'm not that sensible anymore. Oh God, please, could I just wake up? Just wake up one morning, just go to bed, sleep, rest. Wake up feeling well rested and energetic, and I don't know, I guess just too much of my body is mucked up, you know. For me to really feel healthy and perky and alert. This is why most people, those people who talk about how life is, how death is, just the natural process of life. Where it comes down to two things. One, either they are young people who have never been old, or two, old people who have lost hope. Because you reach a certain age, you hurt all the time, you're tired all the time, and it looks like it's never, ever going to get any better, ever again. That the best you have to hope for is that it's not going to be much worse tomorrow. Young people, I can't begin to express to you what it feels like. I mean, imagine being tired all the time. I mean, no matter how much you sleep, no matter what you do, no matter how many vitamins or regimens you take, you're tired all the time and you're sick all the time. And there's always something wrong with you at any given time. And the best you can hope for is to not feel too tired for a portion of the day. And that parts of you won't hurt too much. Imagine having the flu. Not the stomach flu or anything like that. Just the aches and pains and the listlessness. Imagine that all the time. And it comes and it goes. That's what it's like for me sometimes. That's what it feels like. I'm 47 years. I'm only 47 years old. but a lot of my warranties decided to expire all at once. My kidneys started dropping pebbles instead of pee. My gallbladder started making stones, so that had to go. I've had to have 2 different hernias stitched back together. I've had digestive troubles. I've had sleep apnea troubles, and I had my, the whole glandular thing that's messed up my legs. And you got these 2 huge, you got 2, your legs. You think that wouldn't bother you? You just sit, you just sit down, you lie down, and you just ignore it. No, it's you got these 2 big, huge, mammoth lumps of meat attached to your knees, and they are constantly sucking away your vitality because they're in ill health, and they're pulling away your energy all the time. It's like my father. My father, when he was a boy, he was shot in the eye with a BB gun. It was pretty much an accident. Well, the kid who did it was a delinquent, but anyway, he spent his whole life with that eye, blind in one eye. But his whole life aches, pain, hurt, and the older he got, there were more and more problems with that eye. Well, one day, he didn't pay attention. The back hatch of his truck was open, and he didn't pay attention because he's blind and he couldn't see it. And he turned around and the corner caught him right in that blind eye, popped it, and they had to run him Mom had to run him to the hospital and to the emergency room, and they had to remove his eye, and he now has a glass eye. And I cannot begin to describe to you the change in temperament that man went through. Just the release of not feeling that pain anymore. Because that eye, it had all sorts of problems with it, and he had constant headaches. Even a bright day was enough to shut him down, and he was hurting all the time. And then they went in and they removed that eye, and and he came home and he still had the eye patch on, the bandages and everything, and they put him on some medication for pain, but it was like a boulder had been lifted off his back. And he was up preaching his next sermon. He stood up there and he paused. He said, "I can't begin to describe." And he was telling them about the surgery and how why he was wearing the patch and everything. And he paused and he said, "I cannot begin to tell you, the relief of just not having that pain from that non-functional, damaged eye." Just the relief in his voice was astounding. When you got a single part, when a single part of you isn't working right, it will drag your whole body down. Your metabolism, your heart rate, your pulse rate, your endorphin, your body's chemical balance, everything. Nothing to say nothing of your morale. And what's killing me is that all it would take, the treatment for what my situation is very simple. All I have to do is lie in bed with my feet elevated up above my head. All I have to do is lie in a hospital bed for 2 weeks, and my legs will shrink down almost to normal. But living here by myself, and first of all, I don't have no hospital bed, and I couldn't afford one. And I've bought like foam cushions to try and lift my legs up. It's let's say the results are negligible. It's just, yeah, and I've got to get up. I've got to go fix my food. I've got to do my online work, to try and do some work on my writing and my drawing, and I can't do that in my bed. So, can't do it, and so my health just drags on me and drags on me and drags on me. It's frustrating, and sometimes it just feels hopeless. I could go to my, I would, I went to a clinic a couple of years ago, spent 2 weeks there on, it was on Medicaid's dime. But I spent 2 weeks there lying in bed, just being fed breakfast in bed by nurses and watching hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of really bad cable TV. And eventually my legs shrank down. They're baggy, all the skin stretched out. But I was so relieved. I came home. I'll keep my legs all wrapped up, and I'll make sure that they don't. Within a week, they were swollen back to the original size and even bigger. So, unless I want to spend the rest of my life in a bed with my feet in the air, trying to, trying to live my life by. It was like trying to live my life by either remote control or by a hook on a stick. So, let me tell you, you only think, everything I'm saying is a cliche. It's a cliche to try and tell a young person what it's like to be old. Because I describe it as being sick and knowing you're never going to get better. But, a young person can't contemplate that. They can't comprehend it. Because they figure that, that if they think about the future, eventually they're going to get better. So you think when you're young, you usually are. Because, you're getting older, you're getting stronger, you're getting healthier with every passing day. You're young. Any setbacks are temporary. But still, it's a never-ending impulse. But all I can tell you, if you're still young, one, appreciate it, enjoy it. Two, try and take care of yourself. It's old news, and nobody listens to that either. But don't let it rule your life either. You can only do maintenance and upkeep for so long, and it's only so effective. These people who are like 70 years old and look like they're in their 40s, they're freaks of nature, okay? They're freaks of nature. They're not normal. So you shouldn't expect yourself to be like them. And 3, if you can't, be ready to be old. Be ready to be old. Don't prepare your future with the. I love these people. They buy a house and we're going to build this beautiful house for ourselves, and they build it like they're going to be 22 the rest of their lives. No, 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 no. My parents live in a house with a stairwell that's it's almost a 100-year-old house, and I'm not sure how old the house is. I think it's almost 100 years old. You got this narrow, steep little stairwell up to the second floor. Their bath and shower are on the second floor, and it's a bathtub. And I've told you about my trouble about getting in and out of a bathtub in my condition, and you can imagine what it's like. Basically, I think it should be a rule of thumb when you design a house, when you design a home. It should be designed with the assumption that every member of the household that's living there is going to be 80. And design that sucker accordingly. Guardrails, ramps, walk-in shower stall, sit-down, everything, just everything positioned where it's easy to find, outlets and switches and everything positioned where they're easy to find and easy to reach. Nice spacious hallways. And none of this nonsense about putting everything up on a second or third floor. What the hell do you need that many floors for? Unless you're a chimpanzee, you don't need to be living in no tree house. Now, okay, it is almost, it is 9:14. I'm going to call it a night. Let's see, it is Saturday night. I will see you all Monday night. Monday night. And, well, we'll see where it goes from there. Thank you all. I want to take a moment to say thank you all to all the people who have listened in. Thank you all for keeping me company here. And also for your support and your friendship and your patience. And, well, just thank you for everything. Thank you. God bless. Because, just being a sympathetic ear has been deeply needed and appreciated. Thank you. Thank you for your patronage and for your commissions and for everything else. And if you feel like you'd like to throw something in the hat, just go to www.rhjunior.com, click on the PayPal button, make a donation. And if you'd like to be a long-term supporter, go to www.patreon.com/RHJunior and make a pledge, even as little as $1, even as little as $1 a month will help tremendously. Now, I think I'm going to be gonna head and go. And maybe I'll try and not be as such a depressing old fart next time. You all take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And God bless. Good night.